What's going on, gang? It's your boy Tim here. Welcome back to another video. No, it is not a zombies video, but you already knew that much. No, it is not an episode of Tim Time. It's not the podcast I've been doing recently, although it may as well be because it's going to be about that length of time. And no, it is not going to be a fun video. It is both the video that I have been dreading to make the most, but also the most excited to make, just so I can get it over with. I'm going to be talking a lot about my personal life, Timmy's personal life, behind the scenes that you guys don't ever see on social media, and there is a lot. And I like to keep everything very low-key in my life. Oh, don't mind the dog, by the way, and you're probably noticing the new setup. I'm going to be explaining all of that. But this is the final setup, by the way. I'm not going to be moving around again. I've been moving around, and I will explain why. It's just going to be a long video, so please, if you're in this for the long haul, I love you. Every little detail of this video is going to be extremely important, and I have to mince my words carefully. I have to choose my words very carefully. It's like walking through a verbal minefield right now, so because there are some things that I can say, and there are lots of details that I cannot give away still for legal purposes. But here we are. Okay. I have gone through listen, I'm not trying to throw a self-pity party here, but I have been going through it, dude, for the past like 2 years, and for various reasons. It's not really just one specific thing, but there are different reasons that I'll kind of break this video down into. So the best way to go about this type of video is to just start from the very beginning, which in this case for me is summer of 2019 when I graduated high school, all the way up until now, which is, what month is it? It's November of 2022. So yeah, that is the timeline here. It's what, 3 years? Just about, a little over 3 years. And a lot of shit has happened in my life in 3 years. Wow. I don't have a very normal life. I'm just thinking about watching this back, and I feel like I'm gonna forget things and not say things. I'm gonna be all over the place. I apologize. And I also apologize for disabling comments. This is the only video I ever plan on doing that for, because although a lot of people's feedback I would really value and appreciate and love, I know a lot of people's I wouldn't. And I don't really even want people making any judgments or calls without the full gravity and the full context of all of it. Anyways, I'd rather me do the talk, and if you want to support and love me, I appreciate you. Drop a like if you want. So anyways, we'll start at the beginning of the timeline here. Summer of 2019. Now, on YouTube, that was the summer where I took off on zombies content. Not Black Ops 4. Funny enough, actually custom zombies. It just so happened to be the summer after BO4, so it was around that time period, but it was the custom zombies that summer that I was doing. Not only that, but other series, tons of different types of videos. That was the golden age of my YouTube channel. Summer of 2019, best summer of my life. And I also started dating a friend of mine from school in Shop. Now, Shop, the way it worked at my high school, it was basically just a trade school, vocational school, where you would flip between academics and shop, which is a trade that you learn. So half the time you are in a school environment doing paperwork and doing twice the amount of homework in half the time, and then the other week you're going to shop and you're doing whatever your trade is. In my case, it was cabinet making. That's what it's officially called. It's like interior carpentry. It's like home designing and building cabinets, furniture, all that kind of shit. And Lisa was in my shop among a couple other good friends of mine. At the time, Lisa and I weren't like best friends or anything, but we still were kind of tight. Just around each other a lot. It's hard not to be. If you're around someone for 4 years straight, it's hard not to like get to kind of know them. So by the end of my tenure, in high school when I was just about to graduate, Lisa and I started dating. At the very end, like literally the month we graduated. It's real serene. It's real sweet. My first legitimate, real relationship, one that matters, one that's not a stupid, fucking meaningless middle school relationship. So, yeah, first girlfriend ever. Just graduated high school. YouTube was doing better than ever. And I was 19. No, I wasn't. I was 18. I was going to be turning 19. And everything was going great. I mean, the world was going great as well as a whole. COVID hadn't struck yet. My God, that was only going to be a couple of months later. Little did we know. And I took so many cool trips with my friends. I went to West Virginia. Best road trip, best trip. Pretty much some of the fondest memories of my entire life. That was the summer. And then, a couple of months went by. YouTube was still going great past that. I'm not saying that was the only time YouTube was going great, but that was the peak. Time went by. I'm going to be taking a couple of breaks, by the way, because I'm getting cotton mouth here just talking so much. So, don't mind me. I don't know how she's breathing. Sticking her snout in there. Some time goes on, and I'm not even going to lie. I'm not going to front with you. I don't like to talk about money, but I was making a lot of money for a young kid. So I wanted to, unlike most young kids, use it to my advantage. I wanted to build something at a very young age. I wanted to start building my lifelong empire at a young age because I had the financial means to do that. So instead of most people who get money at a young age, buying expensive cars, buying a bunch of dumb, unnecessary shit, gambling it away, I choose to do responsible, smart investments with my money, and I wanted to invest it in a family. And so I, even at 18, was like, I want kids. And that sounds so astronomically crazy and dumbfounding to the average person. But there are two reasons. Well, there's a ton of reasons. Number one, I wanted kids. That's the number one reason. But there are a lot of reasons why I wanted them. Reason number two, had the financial means to do it. So there wasn't a financial burden holding me back. It's not like I'm living paycheck to paycheck or anything like that. Reason number three, my parents had me when they were super old, and they aged swiftly as I was in my adolescence. And although I got to know them really well, and obviously I have a great connection with them, it's not quite the same as someone who's, in my case with my children, 18 years apart. Me and my parents were more like 30 years apart, give or take. So there's a little bit of a relatability factor there with the age gap. That was another reason. It kind of scared me into having kids young, wanting to have kids young, seeing how old my parents were when I was, a teenager. Not that I'm not trying to like shit on my parents or anything. They made a decision. They lived their lives. They met in the Navy when they were older in their lives. That's on them. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with waiting either. But the way I see life is time is invaluable. Why waste time? Why live a decade of my life and then decide then that I want kids when I already am able to and want to now? So that's why I decided to have kids so young. There's my justification, if you will, because a lot of people are always asking me to justify it. A lot of people are always like, you're too young, you're too this, that. Yeah, well, when I had kids, you're right. I was 18. No, I was 19, turning 20 pretty soon after that. Now I'm 22. I just turned 22 like a couple weeks ago. So, and nothing bad's happened. It's perfectly fucking fine. My kids are two beautiful baby boys. But, we'll get to that. One at a time, because there's two, and I got to start with one. Number one is Thorin. Yes, from, not quite inspired directly from The Hobbit, but still a cool name, I thought. And then we decided, we wanted to have kids super young, so we did, Lisa and I. And everything was going great. You probably know where I'm heading with this. It's kind of a giveaway. Yeah. Every little detail is important, though. So we were rocking and rolling. YouTube's going great. We had our first child, Thorin. Getting used to the parenting life. I was still working a lot, though. And that was a major adjustment period in and of itself. Just going from not having kids to having a kid. And then think 3 or 4 months went by, something like that. And we both wanted another one. I don't remember who approached who with the idea, but we wanted another child. So we did it. And Olin came around 13 months later, and they're both just the most angelic, beautiful little babies, and their smiles absolutely melt my heart, and they're the greatest kids ever. And I passed on my genetics, baby. Survival of the fittest, you know? Now I can live the rest of my life freely, knowing my legacy is already set. And they're just the greatest. I love hanging out with them every day. It's stressful, don't get me wrong. Oh my God, I could sit here for another hour talking to you about how stressful parenting is in and of itself, everything that comes with it. But that's not really what this is about. Love being a dad. It is exhausting. Love it though. Very rewarding experience. So we have Thorin, and about 13 months later, we have Olin. We have a 1-year-old and now an infant. And I was still doing YouTube at this time, obviously, uploading consistently. I've never really uploaded very consistently, but semi-consistently. And we had 2 babies to take care of on top of that. Now, the agreement at the very beginning of our relationship, Lisa and I, was that I would be the breadwinner, for a lack of a better word, and she would be the housewife. This wasn't forced upon anyone. We both sat down, had various long conversations about it, our roles as parents. I would be the one who works full time, and she would be the housewife, taking care of stuff around the house and the kids. Sounds good so far. Then, I think I can say this, Lisa, after Thorin, our first baby, went through a little bit of postpartum depression. Now, anyone who has been pregnant or has known anyone who's been pregnant, it's a very, very common, my voice just kind of cracked there, very common thing. It's just the overwhelming nervousness, guilt, and you know, worriness, all of the bad feelings and vulnerability and scaredness, I guess, that comes after having a child. It kind of smacks you like a ton of bricks, and you're like, damn. And then the gravity of your life sinks on you, and then that can kind of sink people into a postpartum depression. It's very common. And I didn't really quite experience that after Thorin. I was, adjusting, losing a lot of sleep, learning what it's like to actually have to be a responsible human being, maturing, but I wasn't quite depressed. Then Olin came around, and because of the dynamic at that point, because Lisa was so depressed at that time, we had a second baby, and a lot of the attention that should have been going to my job, my work here on YouTube, wasn't. And suddenly my resources were being allocated to daddy time, which is, kids are the priority. That's not the problem. But eventually, the problem was I was becoming depressed because of all of the load I was bearing with YouTube. It's a ton of pressure, YouTube. People don't fucking realize it, but it is. I mean, you not only do you got to be good at making content and make it and do it consistently, but you also got to have people watching it, because if no one's watching it, then you're not really making money. You got kids to feed now. Job is stressful. And now I'm doing a lot of the dad work too. So it's just crushing. It was crushing for me at the time, because I had adjusted to becoming a dad, but not a dad of 2 quite yet. I would be lying if I said that Olin wasn't a little premature, and I don't mean premature like he came out premature. I mean premature as in maybe the decision was like a couple of months premature, but not a big enough difference where it would have the ultimate outcome wouldn't have changed. Listen, man, I'm a responsible guy. So is Lisa. And we knew all of the responsibility that we were taking on, and we made a conscious decision to do it, and we consented to it, and these were conversations that we had, and so nothing went unchecked. Everything was checked. We understood the possible ramifications. We understood the gravity of the situation. We knew it was a calculated risk. But these are decisions that at the time, as long as you're aware of all these things, cognizant of it all, and you have the means to do it, you still do it because you can. And I did. And that all happened, and I love the boys. It's not really about the boys at all, this video specifically. Not going to be talking too much about them. It's about Lisa and I's relationship, obviously. So, time goes by. This is about 2 years, a year and a half into our relationship. No, yeah, like 2 years into our relationship. And, COVID had hit. That's the other huge thing, man. COVID hit, and that screwed up so many people's lives in so many different ways all over the world. It didn't really personally affect our lives because we're very insulated. I'm very fortunate and grateful to be living in a great country that mostly handled it well. Mostly. At least where I live. And so I was fine. I was like in a little bubble. I had some money to sit on. I don't run I guess I do run a small business technically. I don't run like a mom and pop shop where I'm living check to check and the government closes down your shop, you're screwed. I was fine financially, just sitting there, enjoying time with the kids, making some videos here and there. Not as much as I used to, but, still uploading on YouTube. The pandemic didn't really personally hit me too hard, but it was still a really depressing time. Obviously, people weren't going outside very much. They weren't allowed to at first. A lot of people couldn't have a lot of social interaction. There wasn't much of that going on. We weren't leaving the house much, obviously to keep other people safe, to keep us, the kids, safe. So we were just sitting in our apartment at the time. This is my new house. We were sitting in the apartment just chilling, basically. Literally chilling. And I don't mean chilling like relaxing, but like just insulated. So, man, I don't want to say that us being stuck together full time in the same house drove us apart, because that's not quite it. But it kind of starts there. We were around each other 24/7. Have you ever been around one other person? Like literally every moment, whether you're conscious or not, you're awake, you're asleep, doesn't matter. Have you been around someone every waking moment, every non-waking moment of your existence? Probably not. And if you have, that's probably because you're in a long-term relationship and you guys vibe, and that's great. But that's a huge adjustment for a 19-year-old. I'm sorry, these lights probably keep flickering on and off. And so that was kind of tough because we were always around each other. And when you're around someone all the time, you start to notice more of their flaws, I guess, for lack of a better word. Or, I don't really like that. Not flaws. Not shortcomings. What's the word I'm looking for? Start to notice, I guess, just more of who they are as a collective whole. You start to see more of like the good and the bad and the ugly and all of it. You see every little bit of it. And so over time, the dynamic of our relationship just started slowly, gradually sucking. It's not like one day we woke up and we were like sick of each other and hated each other. We just like over a year span, slowly, gradually ground down to kind of like unhappiness. And why? Well, like I said, had to do partly with not getting out of the house and being very social and doing normal human things. It was a little bit trapping. And also, here's the other thing that's kind of detached from that. My office space was always in my bedroom where I slept, so my entire existence was basically in I don't know how big the room was, an 8x8 room. I would have a bed, my desk. They were 3 feet away from each other, and I would just swap back and forth. And like I had a living room, but there wasn't a lot of space in that apartment. So my entire existence felt very trapping. We both felt very trapped. That's the perfect way to put it. And the kids were just very stressful. They're great, but they are stressful. So that obviously just adds another just insurmountable amount of chaos and stress into our everyday lives. So on top of trying to juggle everything else, trying to become young, responsible adults. So it was just hard for both of us, really, in every aspect of life for a while. And we kind of flip-flopped. Both of us were depressed at one point. And I won't speak on Lisa's behalf, but I've been depressed probably for 2 years now. I've always had severe anxiety. I think that stems from my childhood. Just put it that way. But but I've never been depressed throughout my childhood. I've only been depressed for the past 2 years or so because of everything I'm about to explain. And every day, obviously, when you're depressed and you're in your own head, starts to become kind of a battle. Every little day is tug of war. It's survival. I know it sounds kind of wimpy, like, oh, you know, mental health issues. Oh my God, like such a pussy. Oh no. Well, yeah. Well, everyone experiences them, whether they like to admit it or not. Mental health is seriously important. Arguably more. Well, I don't know if it's more important than physical health, but it's just as important. My mental health was suffering, man. I was sucking. Just every day was tough for me. I was just getting high, smoking a lot of weed. Still do, but with a kind of a different attitude now. But I was just so stoned and so depressed and so unhappy with my relationship and the way it was going, and we were terrible at communicating with each other. I was, not just me, both of us, just not very open, not very outright with each other. Passive aggressive. It's kind of like the go-to move because we both hated being directly aggressive towards each other. So passive aggressive was kind of the go-to for both of us. So we were real, you know, unpleasant around each other. And it would just be like this underlying sort of subtle boiling, you know what I mean? It wasn't like an outright like fight or argument or screaming match or anything like that. It wasn't like a direct conflict. It would always be like this elephant in the room, this looming in the air, like, oh my God. And, you know, we would just kind of exist that way because, frankly, our attention was elsewhere. We were worrying about children because they come first and foremost. And we had so many great bonding experiences over the children, of course, along the way, which kept us tight, which is why it was able to work as long as it did. But then eventually, I mean, and we do have a lot of things in common. We did get along very much so, and I won't speak on her behalf, but for me in the beginning, the reason why I loved her so much and the reason why I got along with her so much is because she was very sweet and supportive and very kind and was just, you know, she was going through a lot at the time during high school before, you know, we graduated, so I saw that and I knew she was just you know, I don't know. I just really liked her, you know? It's obvious, but a lot to like with her at first, it felt like, and then after a while, you know, I started seeing less and less of that and more of other things. There's a lot I can't say, folks. A lot of intimate details that I can't reveal for her sake, for my boy's sake. I was going through a lot of internal misery, and externally, obviously, it was very hard to show up, to put on a smile, to, you know, not look miserable as fuck. Really has for like the better part of 2 years. And you guys have probably noticed that just by watching the occasional videos I have uploaded. Sort of dwindled over time, but you've seen the videos and you think, damn, the energy probably just ain't the same. And I see it. I mean, if I can see it, you guys can definitely see it. So, and I you know, that's the reality I have to accept. It just sucks. It sucks seeing your own energy sucked out of yourself. Our relationship quickly evolved from being passive aggressive, not communicating, into very direct, hey, this isn't really working out great. And the point of a relationship isn't just for it to even work out. I mean, we were just trying to make it work all the time. And that felt so shitty because it didn't feel like we were bringing the best out of each other or making each other happy after a while. We were just miserable around each other. And that's not what a relationship is. And you try, and we did, but that didn't pan out, evidently. So, yeah. Probably some stuff I left out, but that's a long way of saying Lisa and I are no longer in a relationship, which isn't news to me because I have known about this since March when this all started hitting the fan, you know? You guys are just finding out about this now because I'm pretty good at keeping everything low key, man. Maybe you've seen my bios change and stuff. But other than that, I have not been vocal about it whatsoever on social media because I prefer it that way. I love keeping my personal shit personal for the most part. I'm an open book, but when it comes to strangers online, I love you guys. But like there are some things I would tell my friends that I wouldn't tell you. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. Not like I don't mind telling you guys stuff, but you know, I've kept it under wraps and I've done a pretty good job of it, evidently. So I've already grieved. I've already, you know, shed my tears. That was months and months and months ago, and I felt like total shit about it, and I was hella crushed that it all unfolded the way it did. But now time has gone by since then, and I'm perfectly fine now. But there's a lot more. This can of worms just kind of keeps going. So, for a while, I thought it was my fault. Solely me. I was beating myself up. Guilty as hell in my head all day. Just thinking about all the things I did wrong, the things I could have done better, which there were a ton of. I was a poor communicator. I could have been more open. I could have showed more affection. On a daily basis, I was struggling so hard to survive in my own head that I was incapable of loving myself. I was incapable of loving people around me. Not incapable, but it's very difficult to like allocate your love and attention towards others and be upbeat all the time when you're yourself a miserable piece of shit, which I was. So I was miserable and I was so guilty when this all unfolded. And then some time went by. Took a break around March. This was the break when, you know, everything started. Lisa started making some new friends, socializing more, going out, and that was her way of dealing with everything, and that was my way of dealing with it too. I was doing the same thing, hanging out with people, and just crying it out, and smoking a lot of weed to kind of help cope with it. I didn't want to take any pills to deal with anxiety or depression. Although weed kind of makes you depressed, but that's neither here nor there. And I was just finding ways to deal with it. And then, after a couple of months went by, you know, after a trip to Minnesota with the boys and my family up there, you know, I came back and she wanted to try to make the relationship work again, you know, give it a second go around. We were not officially divorced. And yes, I am technically married. We did get married. And we're working on a divorce as we speak. And it's almost done. But, and it's not that big of a deal. I know you may think, like, married, you fucking idiot. Like, it was fine. The wedding was really fun. It was a great time. Just got drunk. Had friend time, too. I saw a lot of family I hadn't seen in years. The wedding was fine. The marriage part is, honestly, it's fucking whatever. It's kind of a waste of money in hindsight, I guess. But whatever. Anyways, where was I going with that? Oh, yeah. So we, like, for the next couple of weeks, a month or two, you know, after a little break, we decided to make it work. And during that 1 or 2 month period, you know, things were better. They were marginally better. We were trying harder. We really were. And things were marginally better, but not so much better to the point where everything felt completely different. Like, the dynamic still largely felt the same. There were a lot of underlying issues that I had with her and that I guess she had with me. And then after a couple of months of that, things came to a head again. And then, so we gave it a second loop around, gave it our all, didn't pan out anyways. So I can also say that I did try. And the reason why I don't feel guilty about how everything panned out the way it did is for reasons that I can't explicitly say. Because in hindsight, after all of that misery in that relationship that I thought I was causing, I found out, let's just say, some details. Some grimy, disgusting, horrible, shallow, awful, details about things that Lisa had done. I can't give any intimate details, and I'm not going to, not out of respect for her, but out of respect for, I guess, everyone involved to some capacity. I don't know. I don't want to. You know what? And if you motherfuckers hear this and go attack her on social media and stuff like that, just don't ever do that for anyone ever, unless you know, this is my oh, I didn't mean to hit the microphone. This is my relationship. Don't fight for me. Don't go attack her on social media. That is the complete opposite of what I'm trying to do. So, disclaimer there as well. Don't do it. And if you do, I do not condone it. That's also my kid's mom. So, it is important that I don't bury her, which I could do so badly, so deeply, but I won't, because I shouldn't. Behaviors. There were behaviors that were going on that I wasn't aware of until after the fact. And different kinds of behaviors too, not just one kind of behavior. Put it that way. And this part yeah, you know what? Fuck it. This part I can say, because has to do with me and my relationship. I can fucking say it if I want. She eventually asked me if I wanted to be polyamorous. If you don't know what that means, look it up. I respectfully declined. You know, I thought about it for about a day. You know, my 21-year-old 8 brain was thinking about it like, could be nice. But no, ultimately no. That's just more shit to worry about, really. So I respectfully declined, and that was the end. The end of that relationship. Right there. And I did a little digging, did a little research, talked to some people, found out a lot about Lisa that she had hid from me. You know, there was a lot of it that was visible that I did see. But all of the extremely alarming, horrible shit, that was the stuff I didn't see. So I couldn't have kicked myself too hard for that. Now here's the other thing. I'm going to take this completely away from the relationship for a second. We're going to talk about a different plot here. It's not good. It's even worse. For the past 2 years, my dad had cancer. Started off as oral cancer. It was, I believe, either on his gums or the side of his tongue. I think it was the side of his tongue. I think the way it works is, I think his teeth and his tongue were over decades rubbing up against each other and causing friction, and then bacteria gets involved or something like that. I could be totally off base. I have no medical background whatsoever. He got cancer. He actually had cancer long before I was even born. My mom thought she was going to be a widow 2 decades ago when my dad, a little over 2 decades ago when my dad originally had the same cancer in the same spot, but he actually ended up beating it when he was younger. And then over 2 decades went by, and during those 2 decades, after he had survived it the first time, he raised me and my brothers, Chris and Charles. And my parents divorced when I was in 3rd grade. I was 9 years old. 9 years old, my parents divorced. And that was a pretty ugly one. It wasn't pretty ugly as in they were, there was it could have been way uglier. When I say ugly, I just mean there was a lot of bickering, obviously, yelling and arguing constantly in front of us, that kind of thing. It was unpleasant for us watching it. And to go from seeing your parents get along and love each other, to go from that and then go to them doing the opposite and tearing each other apart like sharks, that's horrible. My kids aren't going to have to experience that because they're not even self-aware. I mean, they're 1 and 2, so they're going to start having a functioning memory and cognitive ability when they're when does that happen? Like 4, 5, 6, something like that. They're not going to remember any of this, which is great, actually. I so prefer it that way. I saw my parents get along and then not, and that is not a better approach than not having ever seen your parents together at all, because then it's your reality is only when they're separated. My kids' reality is always going to be Lisa and I separated, so they won't have known anything else. So it's no harm, no foul. You know what I mean? And honestly, no harm, no foul with my parents divorcing because we still got it pretty good. She moved to a house in the same town. We swapped back and forth bi-weekly, and we did holidays with both. We the same school district and everything. Nothing in my life drastically changed. If anything, I just basically got two of everything and I made more friends. Not the worst divorce ever, not worst case scenario by any means, but still not a pleasant thing. Was still raised largely normally, if you will. You know, I had a good social life. Nothing was, school was good. I always got good grades. Everything was great. I just split the time. But I was raised in two extremities, okay? So imagine the first decade of your life, you live with both your parents. But your parents are complete opposites of each other in terms of personality. So they separate, and now you're living two drastically different lifestyles at two different houses. At my dad's house, we had a casual, laid back, good time where I played a lot of video games, hung out with my friends all the time, developed the foundation of everything you see here. This YouTube channel, this background, everything that I've done for the past 5 years, 6 years. That was all at my dad's house, playing video games, hanging out, having a good time. He was very casual. Of course, we helped out around the house, but it wasn't super oppressive being there. And I'm not saying it was oppressive being at my mom's house, but at times it could be. It could be overwhelming. And I'm not even going to get into details with that because that doesn't even matter. It's not relevant to this video. I was raised in two different extremities, and you know, the older you get, the better it gets. You know, I would always talk to my parents when I was a teenager, getting older, and I would get along with them more, and they would get along with each other more because they're not around each other all the time. We would only see each other briefly, so after a while, things cooled off and everything was good. Once I turned 18 and graduated, I had to pick a place to live. I picked my dad's only because that was the house that I originally grew up in my entire life. My mom was the one that moved, and then she ended up moving a couple of times after that. My dad was just there. He was rock solid. He was at that house, and it was just easier. It wasn't better than being at my mom's house. It was just easier for my PC. Everything was set up there too. My whole setup. It only made sense. And I was only there for a very brief time. Lisa and I lived there together for like a couple of months, a year or something like that. And then we had Thorin join us for the first couple months of his life. And then we moved to the apartment. And then the apartment is where all the horrible shit happened and the failing relationship. And then we moved out into this house. And that's where it all reached a front, is when we moved into this house together, thinking we were making it work, and then everything shit the bed after we officially moved into this house, which was in, what fucking month was that? August? September? Something like that. I moved out of my dad's house when I was about 19, 20? Yeah, no, 19. I moved out when I was 19. And I totally could have milked being there forever if I wanted to, but he just would have let me. Like, he's just too nice of a guy, and he would have asked for rent, of course, but other than that, he would have just let me. But I didn't, and I just wanted to be independent and have my family separate. There's only so much space in the house anyways, and my little brother still lives there too, so and you know, but about 2 years ago, when he was 61, he regained the cancer that he had experienced decades prior. Now, it's the same cancer, but it's 25 years later. His body could not handle it as well this time around. It's, you know, it's spread over like this 2 year span. It spread from his mouth to all over the body. and he was old. He didn't, well, old. 61 is, it's definitely like, it's close to retirement age. I mean, it is old, but it's not like octogenarian old. It's not like elderly piece of shit old. Love all you old people who were tuning in. Yeah, it just started getting bad. He never took particularly great care of himself when he was an adult, from what I could see. Early in his life, I believe he did. He, grew up on a farm in rural Minnesota with his family who moved over from Scandinavia. We're two generations removed from the immigrants that moved over from Norway and Denmark. So, and then they spoke Danish when they moved to this country. And so he grew up on this farm environment, this family farm. He was very active as a kid. Probably took care of his health throughout most of his youth. But then like towards his adulthood is when he stopped doing it as much, and he would make frozen foods all the time and takeout and stuff that was easy after a long stressful day of work, which he did. He drove an hour to work every day, drove an hour back. It was 2 hours of driving plus like a 8 to 10 hour shift. He worked like a motherfucker. He was one of the hardest workers. He's a workhorse. And he was for anyone who gives a shit, he was a lab technician. He worked with blood. He analyzed blood and tested and stuff. He's the guy who would find out if you had AIDS or something like that, I believe. So that's what he did for a job, and he was approaching retirement age. He was going to retire when he was like 64, 65, something like that, but he got the cancer again, and it spread, and yeah, his body couldn't keep up with it this time. It was too much for him to bear. He passed away. He died in August 15th. I posted it on Twitter, so you guys saw that on Twitter, maybe Instagram. 63. It happened a couple of months ago. The only reason I have been able to keep my shit together at all, I promise you, is because he showed me how to deal with this. He taught me his way. There is no correct way to deal with grief. Everyone has their own way. Everyone has their own ways of coping, dealing with it, mourning. His way, he was very like he was casual about it. And I don't mean that in like a he didn't give a fuck way. I mean that in a way where he was very much like when his mom died, for example, my grandma in 2014. We were all pretty struck by it. She was old. She was in her 80s, early 80s. It sucked. We weren't happy about it. My little brother was crying about it. My dad told him. This always has stuck with me. He told him, he's like, life happens and so does death, and it is what it is. And I'm here for you guys, and if you're totally allowed to feel the way you want to feel and open up and talk if you want. And he on one hand, he was super almost kind of like emotionally detached from it. It seemed, but not in a way where it didn't seem like he cared, just like he was so overly cool about it. But he also, in the same respect, allowed us to feel the way we wanted to feel. He wasn't pressuring. He wasn't like, come on, guys, fucking, he wasn't like, come on, guys, fucking get up. Let's go. She died. Get over it. No, it wasn't like that at all. It was just like, it is what it is. Let me know if you need I'm a shoulder to cry over if you need one. And then that was it. And I never personally saw him cry over it. Ever. Never. I've never seen him cry. Not that I can remember. And so when you're a child and that is the way you're taught to handle things, that's how you handle them because you're a child and you're impressionable. And so that's kind of how I've handled these kinds of things. And I'm not going to lie. All the shit that's been going on with my relationship has been so distracting from this. I don't even feel like I've 100% fully processed it. I don't think I will for a very long time, if at all. I've mostly processed it. Seeing all of his friends and family, from all over the country come over and see and be there for his his funeral. That was surreal, and that was the impact he had was, oh, he just was always there. He was never not there. He just he was the definition of selfless. He was a stubborn son of a bitch sometimes, but not about things that mattered. He was willing to compromise. He was such a helpful, good person. He's kind of the epitome of that. So it just sucks that that kind of shit happens to people like my dad. But then, people like you know who get to just go on and exist and damage more people, and everything's just given to them. They give nothing. All my dad did was give. He, when I had Thorin, I approached him with the news, nervous out of my mind. I had the ultrasound picture. I did this with all my family members and friends individually for the most part, and he was the very first one I went to. No, 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 that might have been. No, it was him. He was the very first one. Lisa and I were living there at the time, that's why. And when I told him about it, he could have easily, I was 18, 19 at the time, he could have easily said, get out. He could have easily said, you're an adult now. You made this choice. You deal with it. He could have easily made me pay a whole lot more for rent. He could have done so many selfish things, but his first instinct, without any hesitation at all, was to not only be supportive and just be like, dude, it's cool. That's awesome. You're having a kid. Not only that, but he gave up his master bedroom upstairs for us. I was sleeping in originally what's now it was my room originally. It's now my little brother's room. I was sleeping in there with Lisa. My dad had the master bedroom. Chris had the other bedroom up there. And then when we had the kid, we needed more space, and that one room wasn't going to cut it for us. So we needed to either move into the basement or we needed to move into the master bedroom where there's a closet and more space. So I asked him, said, hey, would you mind? Because my dad doesn't care where he sleeps. He fucking sleeps on the couch 90% of the time anyways. I asked him, I was like, do you need the entire master bedroom? Do you think we could take it over? And he didn't even hesitate. He just gave it up. He gave it to us. I'm sorry for all the burping. It's this shit. Which is piss warm now because it's been sitting next to this fucking lava lamp. He just gave me his master bedroom. We had plenty of space then. I think, he did it because he obviously loved us and cared about us and would have preferred to live with us than not live with us, to be honest. And having a little baby around, that's, adds a little bit of it. Always, having a baby around, it's stressful as fuck, but it always injects a little bit of youth and, chaos into the mix, a little bit of unpredictability. Old people especially love it because their lives are so down to a T and predictable and monotonous. And when a kid gets involved, it's very exciting. That's why grandparents are grandparents, and it's such a cool gig. And he embraced it fully, and he didn't push it aside like so many grandparents do. It sucks. I hear all about it. Obviously my mom is extreme. I'm not trying to sound like my mom is out of the picture. She's as supportive, if not even more supportive, especially lately, now that he's passed away, with everything too. I'm not trying to make it sound like she's not in the picture at all, but I'm just talking about my dad right now because, you know, my mom is still here with us. My mom is still alive, and if you're watching this, Mom, I love you, and I appreciate every little thing you do. It means a lot to me. You too, Chris and Charles and Alec. And while I'm giving shout outs to people I really fucking care about and actually love and who haven't been total pieces of shit to me, there's a lot of people, but my mains, you know, Nate, Tyler, the other two Tylers, you know, Riley, Connor, Eric, more. People like them, my boys, and frankly this, even though I haven't been doing this, the whole YouTube thing, and this new house that I got, all of this is what's been keeping me going. Because if I didn't have this house, if I didn't have my boys, if I didn't have my friends, my family, my support web, if I didn't have the financial means, the luxuries that a lot of people don't have in life, like, you know, even if it's like, I'm not gonna lie, I don't really have to worry about much. I mean, I eventually will have to worry because I only have so much money saved up, but I'll have to start getting this shit rolling eventually again, which I will. But you know, I'm so fortunate and blessed to be in such a position where I guess all of this really roots from anyways. I mean, that's why I did what I did. That's why all of what's happened in the past 3 years has happened. It all rooted from this job and this opportunity, really. But it's also the thing that's keeping me going now after everything else happened. That and my really, it's my boy. It's number one is my boys. And then everything else after that. And I've, you know, so, you know, my dad passed away. And Lisa and I are no longer in a relationship, and a divorce is soon to be finalized. The kids are going to be 100% fine. I do not want to hear a fucking thing about my children. We have been taking care of them for the past 3 years. 2 years. Not 3, 2. We'll be fine. They're going to be fine. We're going to split the time 50-50 between us. It is not even going to be a problem. We are too responsible, Lisa and I, we are too responsible, too respectful of each other to not, you know, make it work. Our kids are going to have more than enough. More than enough. They have tons and tons of support, and so do Lisa and I. So, that's really it. That's everything that's been going on in my life, kind of behind the scenes. It's been tough keeping it to myself for the most part. I mean, they say talk to a therapist. I've contemplated that. I mostly just vent to my friends and stuff and my family, so that's kind of helped. But I've been really keeping it boxed in, and I mean, a lot of you people would have never, ever guessed any of that. And I totally get that. That's the environment I set up. I just was so discreet about everything. And, you know, such a weird life, I'm realizing now. Like, okay, so I made COD Zombies video, made a good amount of money at a young age, decided to have 2 children, got married, getting divorced, my dad just passed away, got a new house now. All within like 3 years. Oh my god, and all the endless list of other shit that of shit that I have to worry about now as an adult. Oh my god, having your own home has been an adjustment period. So much more than you realize buying a home. Oh my god. And then I haven't had a consistent fucking space to do this. I've been flipping back and forth. Originally it was my dad's house and we moved into that apartment, and then when Lisa and I's relationship started shitting the bed, then I moved my setup back to my dad's while my dad was dying, and I was there for him every day, helping him out around the house, and I was there for him at my dad's house. I was doing that, and if you saw me on the Rabbit podcast while I was doing that over those months, or Turbo's podcast, then you saw me there. And then I was doing it here again in this office space, and then I flipped it to the other room, and then I flipped it back here, but now it's finally staying. Okay, Lisa's moved out. That's really it. Sorry for the no comments thing. I'd just prefer them to not be there. I'm sorry. I know that like 6 out of 10 of you have something good and loving and productive to say. I know that the other 4 out of 10 of you have something shitty and unproductive to say, and probably hurtful, and yeah, that's just how the internet goes. I've been doing it for too long now. I know what it's like. Everyone, and then the people are gonna watch like fucking 2 minutes out of the video and be like, just make all sorts of leaps and jumps to conclusions. It's whatever. So thanks for watching. I appreciate it, guys. As for what I'm going to be doing going forward, it's pretty simple. I've been doing Tim Time the podcast, although I haven't uploaded that in a couple of weeks. That's because of everything that's been going on, all the moving into this place and the Lisa moving out, and my dad passing away. It's been really tough to be productive on YouTube, but I did upload like 3 or 4 episodes already of Tim Time. I'm also doing the Tidy Whitey's podcast with Justin Rabbit on the side, or not Justin Rabbit, Justin and Turbo on the side as well, obviously on the Tidy Whitey's channel. That'll be linked in the description. That's just a nice comedy podcast that we're doing. And so that's what I've been working on in the meantime until I made this video, and I'm still going to be doing that. But now that I've made this video, it's all kind of, it's all out there. Nothing to hide, nothing for me to even, nothing in my head's going to be like only in my head. No, a lot of it is. I am literally stupid. I didn't give away so many details. I told you I couldn't, but you know what I'm saying. I don't feel like I'm hiding anything anymore. What you see right here is going to be what you see with my commentary video, like whatever's relevant. For example, Elon buys Twitter. I'll sit right here with this microphone and I'll talk about Elon owning Twitter. Owning Twitter. I won't actually do that right now because who gives a shit right now? That's so 2 weeks ago. But you know what I'm trying to say. Kind of like a Moist Critical style video, if you will. That's it. Guys, I love you. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to wash your balls, okay? And there will be more content coming out soon. I actually promise you, now that this video is finally out, there's no more fucking games. There's no more behind the scenes shit. There's nothing else. There's no more ploys or weird shit going on. Goodbye.